Welcome to the Via Stoica Podcast. I'm Benny, and join me as we explore a Stoic way of life, one step at a time. What is a philosophy of life, and how can I know which one is mine? How can I find it? And then most importantly, how can I then apply it? This is what we're going to do in this series. In the next, let's say, 10 episodes or so, we're going to discover what it means to have a philosophy of life, where you can find yours or how you can cultivate and create it, and how you can apply it. This is really what we're going to look into. And to start off with, we all have a philosophy of life. What does it mean? It means that we're all thinking about how we want to live life, what we think is best for us, how we should act. But a lot of us, we borrow it from the world around us, from how society intends us to live it, or we just follow it unconsciously without really asking the big questions, whether it really suits me or whether this is who I am or how I want to live my life. And that's what we're really trying to figure out in this series. Because a lot of people, when we look at a philosophy of life and they start to build it, it doesn't come because everything is going great, because they're at the top of the hill and winning or feeling like they have just and most of us don't start building a philosophy of life when we are winning and when we're feeling great. A lot of us start when it goes bad, when we are challenged, when we have the difficulties of life facing us. The same happened for me. That's when I started to look into Stoic philosophy. When my divorce happened, when I injured my leg, when I was dealing with alcohol abuse, all of these things, they helped me to look beyond, to help me to see some kind of guide, some foundational ideas of how to live life. And that's really what I did. I started to read about different kinds of philosophies, but then when the Stoics came around, they really spoke to me. I identified with how they approached life and their view of life. And that's been my guide so far, and that has really helped me. But a lot of us tend to kind of go through the process, just doing the things as we see fit, without even asking those big questions, whether this is really how we want to live our lives. Life looks fine. It looks fine. Life looks fine, but it feels off. It feels that there's something missing, some kind of spark, something that doesn't drive us to where we need to be. It doesn't feel natural. It doesn't really click. And that's what his philosophy of life should do. And we already live our lives according to these beliefs. A lot of them we have been given by our parents, or in the school, by our teachers, by the friends or people that we grow up with. But we never really get to choose them. And we assume that what we know matters is important to us. What we think are our values or our priorities are actually ours, or maybe we've just borrowed them from others. And when we think about concepts like success or failure, we tend to go to things that are beyond our control. Especially when we look at it from a Stoic lens, we tend to chase the externals, money, fame, all the possessions that we can gather, while we're also too scared to fail, while we're also too scared to fail, to not try, to not endeavor in something new or go beyond our comfort zone. And these beliefs, they shape what we think that we can control or where we should try to put our efforts in. And most of these are inherited or absorbed. Again, they are not ours. And most of these are inherited. They're absorbed by the world around us. And we don't want to live that life. We want to live an authentic life, an aware life, full of intention and full of our own. And we want to live an aware life, full of attention, full of who we are and expressing ourselves the way we're meant to be. When things go well and when things are calm, our philosophy isn't really something that we need to lean on too much. It kind of stays invisible. But the problem is that as life kind of progresses, we tend to flow along with the river, looking around a little bit, but not really experiencing what is happening. These routines, they take over, they hide who we really are, the direction we want to take, and they sometimes can misguide us, taking other paths that we shouldn't have been doing. But things work. So why do we question? We are making career. We're earning our money. We're having a roof over our heads. We're feeding our family. And these are the basic needs. But we often go beyond that. We want to wear fancy clothes, wear jewelry, have expensive cars or an expensive house. And as we seem to do that, we shackle ourselves to all these external things in life. These chains become heavier and thicker, and we can't seem to get rid of them. But a good philosophy of life can help us break through these habits and change our expectations of what really matters in life. And from there on, we can be free again and live our life the way our nature intended it, full with the world around us. But what often happens is that life gets difficult. We seem to be going uphill all the time, fighting our inner voice that tells us that we should be doing something else, or the pressures that just keep piling up, making more money, always finding something else. The happiness wave is never ending. And in those moments, especially when things don't go the way we want to, when we experience loss, or when we are just simply exhausted or full of uncertainty, that's when we start to think. That's when we start to look beyond what we're doing and asking ourselves those difficult questions. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Is this the life that I want to be living? Now, for some, that's exactly the moment when they need to start, when they hit that wall. As I said, the same went for me. That's when I started to really discover and explore who I really am. And I'm still on that journey. I'm still making my mistakes, still learning a lot of new things about myself. But for me, that was really the kickstart. And for others, I've also heard that they've started exploring this even when it went well. And that's the great point to start. If you can do it at that point, great. So if you are listening now and you do feel that life is going exactly the way you want it, take a pause, stop, just reflect a little bit and take stock of where your life is. Look at your values and your priorities. See how they meet the life that you're actually living, and then build it from there. Make your philosophy something that is actually in line with how you're living. Now, a philosophy is not just a bunch of answers that are going to tell you exactly like this is what you got to do, these are the steps you've got to take, here you got to, these decisions are the ones that you've got to make. But this is more about building a good foundation, helping you orient yourself as you walk through life. It's this guide. The Stoics and the ancient philosophers used to say that we had a daemon on our shoulder, right? A little guardian angel, if you will, that would help us, guide us as we would navigate the waters of life. And although it does sound like self-help, and this is not building a specific system or having a specific expertise in something. We've looked at who can be a philosopher in a previous episode, and anyone is a philosopher. You are a philosopher as well if you're thinking about life, if you're asking the difficult questions and then trying to solve it, trying to figure out what the best way is to deal with the present moment. And this isn't necessarily self-help. This is something that you use in cooperation with the world around you when you need support or when you can guide yourself. But this is something that helps you stand up straight and not straightened, as Marcus Aurelius told himself in the meditations. This is something that helps you walk through life as it happens to you or with you. It helps you embrace fate. It helps you see the world for what it really is and make sense of it all, at least a little bit more than before. Give it meaning, find your purpose, and a place to return to when things get difficult. Now, this series is meant as an exploration. We're not going to tell you here, this is your philosophy of life, this is what you should live by. And yes, we're going to use Stoic philosophy here throughout this series as well, but that doesn't mean that you need to become a Stoic. It can mean that you use some of it, maybe even more than some, like myself. I've really learned to live, or try at least to live, according to the teachings of the ancient Stoics as best as I can. And sometimes I pick up some things here and there from other philosophies that speak to me that I find interesting. But again, this is your journey. This is an exploration. And I keep saying that this is also the beauty of life. We only have one shot. But if we don't even try to explore and see and discover what it really means to us, then why do it? So even if this might seem like a difficult, daunting journey, embrace it with energy, with love, with optimism, with gusto, to make sure that this is something that you can use to help you see life from a different light. And we're going to look at the beliefs that we inherited, how they support us, maybe how they slow us down, how we can change those beliefs where need to, and how they influence us in our daily moments. We can see, we can create something that guides us when things fall apart or even when they go well. Because sometimes that's when we need the most guide, when we're at the top of the hill and we feel like we're invincible. That's sometimes when we need to slow ourselves down. We need to understand what reason is and why it helps us, and also sometimes what the limits of reason are and when we need support, when we need those people around us. Again, we are pro-social beings. We can't do this by ourselves. We need to have the people around us to help or guide us when we are in difficult times. We will look at how to set our values and our priorities. Maybe not even set them, but identify them, seeing what really matters to you, where you want to go, and how you can then make the best decisions based on that to stay closest to your nature, to who you actually are. Another important step is learning our roles and responsibilities in life. That will help us to choose where to go, what decisions to make, what actions to take a lot better. When we look at virtue ethics, we also have the role ethics, and that can just break life down a little bit in easier, manageable chunks instead of just looking at it from the great picture. Understanding our roles and responsibilities, understanding our roles and duties will help us make these difficult decisions, but also how to interact with the world around us, how to build solid and good relationships. And although we set the bar high, as we see, the Stoics do that all the time. They talk about the sage. We also need to learn to live with imperfection, to show kindness and compassion to ourselves when we do make a mistake or when we do fail to live the life that we have set ourselves out to or according to our values and our priorities. But that's fine. This is not something that is finished. A philosophy of life is a living entity just as we are, and it evolves and it learns and it grows. And that's how we need to approach this. And a philosophy of life needs to include our human limits. We are not perfect. We are not machines. We're not going to do exactly the same thing. And sometimes our emotions, our judgments, our opinions, they might not be exactly in line with what's really happening in the world. Or our emotions take over. We feel anxious, angry, sad. And that's when reason stops for us. That's again when we need that support help. But we need to find a way that when we're in that moment that we can learn to pause, that we can fall back on the foundation, trust that, have confidence in it, that will be able to guide us through those moments. But for that, we need to be aware. We need to make sure that in those moments we can recognize them, take a step back, and see what we really need to do. Or maybe not. Maybe we need to just step away for a second. Maybe this is not our time to act or to make decisions. Because these strong emotions, they narrow our perspective. They blind us from all the rest of what's going on and even from those that can help us. But this distress isn't a failure. This is just a part of life. This is just who we are. We have our ups and downs. And sometimes our orientation comes through our others. That's why a big part of our philosophy of life is a support network, is those around us, those who love us, those who care about us. And the philosophy of life can help us identify who those people are and who actually live in a virtuous relationship with us. In the next episodes, we will start to explore the philosophy of life. And I'd like you to think about these following questions as we start that journey. We want to ask more about who we are. What is our nature? Can you listen to your inner voice, to that intuition? Think about what's important for you in life. What do you really want to achieve without the external pressures or without anyone else telling you what should be done or where you should be going to or what your next move should be? Ask yourself, if I had to choose with nobody else involved, what would I do with life? Or something simple as if money didn't make an impact on my life, what would I do? What would I do then? Those are some of the questions we will explore. And again, if you want to add something, if you have already found a philosophy of life, or if you have some extra questions, leave a comment. Those will really help us in the journey, not just me, but also the other people who listen, everybody else who tunes in and reads these comments. We really appreciate that. And as we tend to say here on Via Stoica, we live a Stoic way of life, at least we try to. But we should really look at it as a philosophy of life. And that's your way. That's your journey. and your path to start working on. So hopefully you'll join us in these next episodes as we start to explore and build and create our own philosophy of life. And even if you have one already, I'm sure you'll pick up on something new. So thank you for joining us. Hope to see you in the next one.